Strings of Light. I wanted to call it, I don't know if you can bear the preamble, but it may be interesting to people the way you end up with the title. I've had this a few times. A number of albums I've just gone ahead and done my own thing, but there've been others where I've not been sure, and then you start asking the panel, if you like, manager, girlfriend, engineer, record boss, and of course no one agreed. Everyone has a different idea, and you just end up by going round and round in circles. I remember Slow Dance. I had so many different titles for it, and none of them worked. In the end, I just gave up, and the record boss named it. I wanted to call this one Rainy Day Postcard. Not a single person liked it at all. And then when the artwork was chosen, which was a kind of, well, I don't know how to put it really. Let's just say it was an image that didn't come out quite as it should have done, but it seemed very effective. And people said use that. It ended up with the one that was going to be on the back being on the front, as often happens, you get this kind of thing. And my girlfriend had said that this particular image looked like strings. And so, having gone through a lot of unbelievable amount of Ponzi suggestions, my manager, who's a big King Crimson fan, he came up with Ad Astra, Add Something Else, which is much more like a Crimson title. And great, but I just thought it's a little bit complicated for this. So the cover actually really did, it knocked a lot of other things out and made things quite easy really. Just don't be too complicated. It looks like strings. It's light, strings of light. I wasn't sure whether I'd have time or be able to extend it beyond being a solo album. With Field Day, that had come about very much in the late 90s, early 2000s, where I'd been endlessly doing background music for TB, and it was all keyboard based. So, and there was a kind of hiatus with the changing of the guard at the library company, and it afforded me time to think about guitars, and I was getting very out of practice. I would play here and there, and it was great fun. But there's a big difference between mucking about and having nice ideas and actually producing something that sounds proper, if you like, constant standard or proper recording standard. So on that one, I pretty much just took a lot of the instruments and just started improvising on each, really. With this one, with Strings of Light, it was a bit quicker, really. I tended to look at what material I had. Like a lot of composers, I just store ideas, and there were a few new things, but a lot of it came from embryonic ideas that I'd put away and thought, well, this is really, this is nice. This could be developed, and took a group of them and did that. And at that point, I still wasn't sure whether it was going to be. Ideally, I'd like to have made it more multi-timbral and had more parts, but the amount of material, which actually wasn't anything like as much as Field Day, but it was still a fair bit. I mean, I didn't realise, by the way, there was enough music for this to be a double. I don't actually think of it as being a proper double, because a double to me is where you've got sort of double the amount of material for a CD. We were just over on this. We were over by about 5 or 10 minutes. And actually, rather than hitting people with a sort of 77 point whatever it is, you can cram on and then knocking out a couple of tracks. I thought, well, why not do it like side one and side two? You've got two 40-minute plus sessions, big cup of tea in the middle. Does anybody want to listen to more than an hour's music at the time? Well, yes and no, really. I mean, in the old days, your vinyl days, you'd listen to side one. You probably wouldn't necessarily go straight on to side two. I mean, I did find it quite onerous, the practice this time. I found the process of getting it from rough ideas, developing up to the fully fledged thing. I mean, I'm nearly 20 years older than Field Day, so I found, whereas my friend Steve Hackett is constantly on the top of his game with playing, because he's out touring all the time. He also doesn't play keyboards. Probably doesn't have to spend as much time at the computer, naughty Steve, as I do as well. So actually, I had a lot of ground to make up with technique. It really is, honestly, it's light years. somebody said composing is 5% inspiration and 95% perspiration, and you could actually say that in terms, for myself, even more maybe, in terms of the difference between the rough idea and the properly cogent idea. And I didn't want to do it all in sections, all in, could have just done it in sort of small edits. I'm not saying we didn't use edits. Obviously, you use edits because you want to get the best performance, but I didn't rely on edits. There's only one place, I don't know if any bright spark, super bright spark can ever spot it. There's only one place where it was just physically impossible. Well, I think so. I'd challenge anybody to be able to, at speed, make this one change. That was the only one where I, from the start, said that is going to be an edit. Can't do it. Now the rest of it, I just wanted to try and play, play straight through, because you get the flow that way. Particularly the last piece. My engineer James is fantastic. I never thought the last piece was going to work because it seemed hopelessly fragmentary to me. But I think if I'd recorded it myself, I would definitely have got bogged down just by myself, and stopped after each little section and kept retaking it, and then you're on to take 34 and you're writing notes, and just the whole process would have been a total nightmare. But he said, just keep going, and then we can go back. We can just go back, and I think we got this bit covered, we got that bit covered, and you always do the bit leading in, so you've got the flow. And that way we were able to make it sound homogeneous. But that trying to practice each piece up to performance stand did take a long time, and I didn't really have, to be honest, I really didn't have the energy then to think about doing overdubs all the time. There was, there's one where I do a electric guitar piece on the outro. There's a couple of links where there's multi-timbral 12 strings and things, and there's overlaps and things, so it's a little bit more varied than Field Day. It's not quite as austere, if you like. But I think the other thing is that you can start to get to once you start adding parts, you get to how long is a piece of string. Do I make, it'd be nice to have the third part maybe. Oh, hang on, we could turn this piece into a quartet. So yeah, I think the concept, I stayed pretty much with the original concept. For me, certainly the longer you spend on something, the more you dislike it. And that's why I think artists are really bad judges of their own work, because the things you dash off quickly, you probably think, pretty good this, isn't it? And actually others are thinking, not sure about that. Whereas the stuff that you're on for a long time, you get so used to that it starts to really grate. You really can't see the wood for the trees, whereas to somebody else it sounds lovely. I hardly touched a guitar for about 2 or 3 months after this one. I just didn't want to know the G word, because you're getting so neurotic. Well, not neurotic, you're getting so worried about every single fine point. Is this track good enough? Have I got the best out of it? And I suppose that's the sign of when you're putting in a lot of time on something. I don't know many people that completely relax when the so-called red light is on. That's why often, it's the great when the engineer said, we'll just do a run through. And you think, has he got it going? There would be a couple of times I say, James, did you have it on? And there was one time when he said, oh no, I was in the loo. And I thought, how dare you be in the loo? Then I thought, that's completely illogical. Of course the man needs to go to the loo. So yeah, sometimes it's like, if you try too hard with anything in life, you trip yourself up. It's a funny thing in life, isn't it? It's the more worried about making a mistake than actually getting it right. And anybody will tell you, once you flip over into that territory, and it's a very common thing with performance, the fear of making the mistake dominates the desire. Not the desire is there to do well, but the fear of making the mistake dominates. You can go the other way, which is to try and be too florid. A couple of times James would say to me, actually, maybe we'll just try a slightly simpler one. But I would love to be able to say to you, no, as soon as I started playing, it was the white heat of, I was out there with the stars and flying around. No, you're thinking about technical things as well. The sound, the right hand, the nails. Is this nail too short? Is this nail going to catch? Is this going to squeak? Too many squeaks. So there's a lot of technical stuff you're thinking about. There's a whole load of stuff that goes in. And then maybe the more you practice a piece, the more you're going to think that as well. That's why sometimes the things that are sort of hot off the press, the improvisation ones, are the ones that are often the most relaxed, but they might not be the best pieces. We felt there's always this challenge to try and get as close to the real thing. You know, so James would come down here and then go upstairs and say, actually, that sounds pretty similar to what I've just heard you playing. So that's one element of it sounding real, which is, I'm afraid, is how much dosh you've got and how lucky you are to be able to afford really good microphones. Some people eschew squeaks completely. I mean, indeed on orchestral recordings, I think a lot of players have to use, guitarists on sessions have to use special strings. I mean, they're squeak free effectively, but they're a bit duller. They're a little bit duller because you cannot have, in the middle of a wonderful film cue, you've got this bit where the guy's playing the lovely guitar melody, you get a, you know, that's going to sound like a sound effect in the film, so you can't have that. And in fact, we didn't worry about it too much to start with, because actually I think if you start worrying about it when you're playing, it's an absolute nightmare. I know some guitarists put talcum powder and stuff on like that, but I didn't really think about it, and James didn't think about it either. But when we listened back, my manager was on it, and he was saying, I think this is a bit too squeaky. So this is where the beauty of modern technology comes in. We managed to find this plug-in, of course it has to be, doesn't it, which actually somehow, don't ask me how it works, it magically doesn't change the sound. And it's slightly de-squeaked, not dramatically. It's still there, but there was a bit of sort of, perhaps there was almost too much. But I'm delighted, because actually the more natural you can make, if you can make people feel you're in their home, it's a great feeling, isn't it? And I guess as recording techniques get better and better, you know, ultimately that's the challenge, isn't it? Is to get as close to the real thing as possible. So we're getting there.